distinction between just getting an attorney in probate or probate litigation and getting somebody who really is a specialist and really knows the business. I had the great privilege of being on a panel recently with Robert Hall and Associate accounting firm to meet really one of the top probate attorneys in Southern California, in the Pasadena area, Joshua Driskell of Lagerlof law firm. And so he's been nice enough to join us here today. Joshua, thank you so much for coming on Probate Weekly.
Of course. Thanks, Bill. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Give me a background. How did you end up in probate real estate as an attorney versus all the other areas of law?
Yeah, being an attorney is sort of like whichever job you get out of law school is sort of how you get pigeonholed sometimes. And the first job that I had coming out of law school was for a firm that did a ton of estate planning, a ton of trust administration, a lot of real estate work, corporate work, and probate. And so it's really the only world I've ever known. I'm licensed in several states and have handled probates in all of those places. And, I started it. I really liked it. Probate scares some attorneys for some reason because it's got court involved and it has, people looking over your shoulder and all sorts of stuff. So I always found that fun. You're getting in front of the same judges a lot. They get to know you, which is very different than civil type law where in LA County, for example, there's 100 judges just in the downtown courthouse. There's only 5 probate judges. So you get to see these people a lot. So that's always, been really attractive and really fun.
It's so funny to see. I literally have a listing tomorrow being confirmed at court. And to me, I feel like a football team where you practice all week and then you go for the game and, I dress differently and pack differently and get down there early. And I'm excited. I'm talking to realtors who theoretically might have a customer to overbid. I'm trying to encourage them saying, hey, it's fun. I'll buy a coffee, come down and meet me. I'm excited. And they're scared. Most people are scared to get in front of a judge. It must have been scary to a degree for you when you started. How did you work yourself through that?
Trial by fire. You just have to go down there. I remember the first time I was in probate court. It is like it's a foreign world. And anybody that's done work in civil, the civil type attorneys, they're like fishes out of water in probate. It's got its own set of rules. It's got its own norms and things like that. And in law, attorney to attorney, we have a phrase called being hometown. And really what that means is you're totally out of your element and you had somebody run circles around you because they knew the rules and you didn't. So we see that a lot in probate. So, somebody whether it's probate litigation or it's just even probate administration, somebody will, they'll call their friend who's an attorney and they'll go down and I can handle that. Sure. And they end up making a huge mess of it, delaying it. Litigation's even worse because, they're totally out of the water from a rules perspective. And it's really not to their benefit. So, if anything, you should always use somebody who's, a probate expert, somebody who's practicing in that court all the time.
Yeah, I say in real estate, I don't know that you have to on a standard full authority probate unless there's litigation or objectors. Certainly on a court confirmation, I think that's where you really need to find somebody who's going to help you. With attorneys, I used to be in court every day and I'd see like the really fancy attorney with a fancy suit. And I'm looking online on my phone and he went to Harvard Law School and he looks all great. Right. He's got the $2,000 briefcase. And then the judge says, did you clear the probate notes? And he's like, probate notes? What are those?
Yeah, Your Honor, I don't know what those are. And okay, great. And then as an attorney waiting for my case to get called, right, I go ahead and grab a cup of coffee because I know now that it's going to be a few minutes before my case is called.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As a result of that, do you end up getting business referred to you by other attorneys that don't practice probate? Is that part of, or is it your firm's big enough to get that, or how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually get work from other probate attorneys. Our firm's sort of known for very messy probates. We probably do 200 probates a year. We do a lot. So chances are in 200 probates a year, we're going to see the issue at least once before, right? Whatever the case may be. And I have handled probates of all complexity level, the simple ones, the really complicated ones. So, attorneys know that, and the probate bar is relatively small. So they will, refer work to me or to the firm and say, look, I know you guys can figure this out. There's got to be a solution here somewhere. kind of thing. And sometimes in probate or any area of law, but particularly in probate, there's not a cookie cutter perfect solution. You may have to figure out, okay, what's the best approach to sort of getting in here and getting in front of the judge if there's an issue or whatnot, because it's not always going to line up exactly with a statute, code section or something. So you need somebody who has experiences in front of the court a lot to kind of guide you there.
I was once in court and I watched a case where normally on a California limited authority, you can't sell the property for less than 90% of the appraisal, the inventory and appraisal report. And I saw a judge, agree based on certain extenuating circumstances, approve it. And I said, wow, the code says you can't do that, but the judge just did it. And I had a case later with another attorney about a year later, and this situation came up. We had to sell it quickly and below the price. We couldn't get the appraisal done. I said, well, I know that the judge can't do it. Now, the code says they can't, but the judge can do whatever the judge wants to do, as long as it makes sense and as long as it's in the best interest of the state. How do you kind of play those lines? How do you decide when to push the envelope? Obviously, some things you've seen and you learn from experience. Other, you kind of have a sense of it. How do you kind of play that line a little bit?
Yeah, well, you're right. At the end of the day, the judge can sort of do whatever they want, right? Now, could somebody appeal that decision? Could there be some other mechanism where it could ultimately be a problem? Maybe, right? But for the most part, judges are empowered to make decisions like this every day. Probate court is a court of equity, right? And that is a distinction from, a contract dispute, right? If you've ever been involved in something like that, that's a court of law. That they're looking at the contract. They're determining, did you say you were going to show up on January 5th and put a new driveway in? Yes. Did you show up on January 6th? Yes. Okay, you breached the contract, right? End of story in that simple example. When it comes to a probate court's a court of equity, and they're really looking at what is fair in these circumstances, what's right, best on, this circumstance. So very different. And, that's usually what you're appealing to in a lot of these situations, is that what is right in light of all of the circumstances, what's going to get the most money in the pocket of the beneficiaries, so on and so forth. So yeah, I've seen judges make all sorts of decisions like that.
Now, you mentioned, I think, that you're licensed in several other states. Do you mind sharing which states those are?
Sure. Ohio primarily is my other state that I do a lot of work in. Also in Michigan, but do a lot less. I've actually let my license go inactive there. Did a lot of work when I worked in Ohio. And Ohio, I guess the biggest thing to take away from that is every state is very different on probate, right? Or any areas of law. But in particular, probate is very driven by the state law and then by the county that you're in. Even in LA, right, where we have a lot of different counties around us, LA County, Kern County, all of that. Even though they're playing from the same rule book, the judges are doing things very, very different in the counties. So you really need also, in addition to having somebody who is, a probate expert, you want to have someone who's an expert in that county that you're in, because it's really important.
I think you're right. And I think knowing those local rules and procedures, and if you can even know the judges, is such a big advantage. I know in LA, it seems to me that almost every judge, almost every time, will delay a foreclosure if it's to the benefit of the estate, almost seemingly without any reason. And in Orange County, I've seen judges say, hey, you had your 90-day notice, you had your notice of trustee sale. No, that's the law. They had fair notice, and the lenders, and like you would never hear that in Los Angeles, but that's more common, not the rule, but more common in Orange County. Can you think of any other differences between counties that stand out that point to the importance of knowing the local county or local rules? Yeah,
a lot of it's administrative. Like, for example, in some counties, you have to file an original death certificate with the petition for probate. Some counties you don't. Different levels of publication in different counties. All these counties have different local forms that you have to fill out. But you picked up on probably the biggest difference, which is how the counties are in utilizing their discretion, right? Because that issue that you brought up, which was probably an ex parte request to, temporarily restrain the lender from, completing a foreclosure, is at the judge's discretion, right? They look at that and they say, okay, am I going to restrict this company's rights or this person's rights over the estate, and basically benefit the estate in light of what the contract says. You're absolutely right. In LA County, they will do that pretty much every time, at least once, maybe even twice, on the same piece of property. In Orange County and some of the other counties around LA, no. You better show that the estate did some really dramatic things to try to keep this from going into a foreclosure, and but for something outside the estate's control, they would have paid.
Yeah.
LA County, not so much. So those are examples where you really want to know where you're at, and talk to somebody who's experienced to figure out, okay, is this even going to work here in LA County?
Right. Well, just real quick, let's do a couple of administrative stuff. This is Probate Weekly. We do this every Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. We live stream it on YouTube and Facebook. If you're watching on live stream, feel free to put your questions there and we'll answer them. We love to have people come on live and participate, because that's really how we all learn better. I'm a practitioner. I'm not selling data. I'm not selling coaching. I'm learning and talking to Joshua, sharing with you, hopefully, and maybe helping create some business for him as well. But my goal here is for us all to learn by being better at our business. A couple quick resources. You can register and come on the call live on Zoom via probateweekly.com. Probateweekly.com is the website. You can see the past episodes. They're all recorded at episodes.probateweekly.com, episodes.probateweekly.com. On Facebook, we have a Facebook group that's free, Probate Experts. We have attorneys from around the country. We have real estate agents and investors from around the country. And we have families of petitioners that come in, ask questions, and get leads there for real estate. So love to have you participate. This is meant to be participative. I see Lynn on our YouTube. Thank you with the shout out, and love to have you guys. If you like it, please like it. If you want to subscribe to it, love to have you subscribe to it and participate. So, Joshua, if you were giving advice, this is one of the challenges I see that I can't really speak to, but I'm going to give you a little bit of a platform because of your success and such. If you're giving advice to an attorney who is struggling in their practice because they're doing a lot of things, none of them particularly well, I think you would say they're going to do better by picking an area and focusing in on that. That's hard to do when you're building your business because you have to kind of give up what looks like a case to spend time. How do you encourage somebody to develop that expertise in one area? And the same is true with real estate agents. How do you encourage somebody to say, hey, just get through that initial period. In the long run, it works out better for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know if you're starting out and you're trying to develop an expertise, I know it can seem counterintuitive to tell, to focus down, right? Because I think the feeling or the inclination is to try to say, well, I do all of this, right? I can do your probate, I can do your estate planning, I'll sue that contractor for screwing up your driveway. I'll do this, I'll do that. And the reality is you might be able to do those things and you might be able to do them all well. But generally speaking, when you are advertising that you can do that, those numbers of things, you'll lose people, right? Because people want to hire experts that they think can get things done, that they are going to be able to, exactly how to handle something and go from there. So the way I've always looked at it is you can have a few areas of expertise. Like, for example, I do a lot of estate and trust work. That's probably the bulk of my practice, but I do a lot of corporate and tax work and a lot of real estate work. And depending on my audience or depending on, the issue at hand, maybe I'll focus on one over another. But the other thing is there's nothing stopping you from doing those other areas, even if you're focused, let's say you laser focus on being a probate attorney. You're still going to have a lot of people come to you for other issues that are, that maybe you can handle because you might be the only attorney they know, or you might be somebody that you're an attorney that they trust, or you're someone like that. So just like Bill, if somebody came to him to sell a piece of property that wasn't in a probate, he's not going to tell him to go pound sand. He's going to say, okay, sure, whatever. Just like if somebody came to me and said, all right, hey, can you handle my X, Y, and Z? And it's something that I know I can handle competently. Sure, I can do that. But I'm not going to advertise it in the same way. People know me as a trust and estate attorney, probate, whatever. So, I know it seems counterintuitive, but it really does pay dividends when people start to, recognize you in connection with a specific area of law or a specific type of practice. So that's my thought there.
One of the questions I get a lot as I talk to real estate agents around the country is they'll ask me a question about probate that's unique, or estate planning unique in their state or their area. And I'll say to them, well, that's a great opportunity to call an attorney if you know one. nobody wants to be called to be pigeonholed for referrals. But I think we
Yeah.
all like to help somebody when you see somebody making an effort to build their business and participate. What would your recommendation be? Should a real estate agent looking to build but has a legitimate question for the client feel comfortable reaching out to an attorney, invite them to coffee, invite them to lunch, or just a phone call? Or what would be the proper way to reach out and to build that relationship?
Yeah, I think they should. They absolutely should. I mean, I talk to agents all the time, talk to other attorneys, CPAs all the time. Sometimes it's as simple as just being a resource and answering their question, right? Knowing that, look, they're handling this case or they're handling it. It's not, they're not so far out of their depth that they're going to refer this client over to me, but they're having a little bit of struggle in one area or another. I have no problem helping people with that because I would want somebody to help me if I didn't know the answer to something. But you're right, Bill. It is a great opportunity to get to know an attorney, and you'll probably have really good luck if it's hey, you email somebody with a basic area of the question. Hey, I have a client with this issue. We're stuck here. There may be an opportunity to assist on this for you. Can you help me? Can I spend 10 minutes and ask this question? You're likely to get a really good response. And then depending on how you're connecting with that person, right? Maybe it's a good opportunity to invite them to lunch or coffee. Because, just like clients do business with people they know, like, and trust, people refer business to people they know, like, and trust. Yeah. And if you can, get your foot in the door through a question and then start to ask more about their practice, and then, inevitably they're going to ask about yours. And, it's a way of kind of communicating how you might be mutually beneficial to each other. Because that's really key, right? If you just call and you say, hey, I want to sell all your probate real estate, you're not going to get very far, right? But if you are showing how you're able to, be mutually beneficial to them, hey, how can you help me? How can I help you? You have a much higher likelihood of getting somewhere.
Let's pivot a little bit to estate planning rather than probate. I think I enjoy probate a lot more than it really generates the business as a real estate agent. But I think of estate planning as avoiding probate, the preventative side of the business, right? But it's more than that. It's really about helping people focus on their goals and their family relationships and all that. So talk a little bit about, is that primary business that people come to you? Do you reach out to offer? Because I find people don't spend enough time thinking about those things. They don't spend enough time planning on those things until they have a problem. Then they're calling you on the phone desperate, right? We don't spend enough time preparing for problems. We spend too much resolving. How do you, or do you, are you able to help people get into the preventative mode rather than the reactive mode?
Yeah, thankfully, I have a lot of clients that are already in that, right? They're thinking about it. They're looking at it, and sometimes there are clients that just aren't ready for it. Maybe they're in a life mode where it's not of concern. I think education is key there, letting them know what, when we're talking about prevention, we're talking about really cost avoidance and time avoidance, right? You're operating in the probate space, it's slow and it's expensive. When you compare it to the typical trust administration of assets of the same type, usually probate is more expensive than it would be to administer a private trust. Yeah. So, if somebody's driven by cost, if somebody's driven by, who they're leaving behind, and wanting to make sure that they're not leaving them a mess, and that it's going to be difficult for them, that's when we really find that we have the best success on trying to get somebody to do some preventative and in advance estate planning. Because otherwise, they haven't seen the need yet.
So I didn't notice this when we met previously. I just thought you were an attorney at the firm. Came there and said, you're the managing partner. What does that mean? What's a managing partner? I imagine a one person law firm is a fancy title, but you guys are a legitimate firm. What does a managing partner mean versus a regular daily attorney?
Sure. So we have a little over 100 people. So I'm the managing partner, as you mentioned, and really that means I'm the chief administrative officer or chief executive officer of the firm, as well as a practicing lawyer, right? So I oversee our firm structure, our management. I deal with our acquisitions and all of the business side of the firm, as well as practice. So it's fun. I love it. I love the kind of the two pieces of it.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. What's really fun for
me,
though,
sometimes it's fun.
Yeah. Some days it's really fun. today. It's really fun. What's really great though is that I get to put in place, and talk about with experience the types of things that I'm recommending for the client, right? So like in a merger and acquisition, I do a good amount of that, particularly driven by estate planning. We do that as a firm level, right? That's how we've grown. That's how we build our business, that kind of thing. When it comes to real estate, right? I'm a personal real estate investor. I have properties of my own. I can talk investor to investor, right? So those are really great things to be able to do. And I also really enjoy the entrepreneur side, right? Probably most of the people on here are entrepreneurs and they understand kind of how that works and that's what they want. So it's really fun to be able to, guide the firm. I mean, this firm's been around since 1908 and under my leadership, if you want to call it that, we've grown to the largest that we've ever been. Our branding's the best that it's been. We're in more locations, we're in multiple states, all those are things that, when I started didn't exist and now do. And, it's a struggle every day to push it, but it's really fun. And I also love the practice. I get to see all of our different firms, different groups, which is really.
How do you allocate your time between the business management, side, the CEO hat, and the attorney who works with clients hat? How do you structure that, or do you structure it, or does it just kind of flow?
Well, it's 100% planning and working 100% administrative. Just kidding. It feels like that some days, and it's 100% in both categories. It's very much by the flow. I'm really lucky that I have a C-suite, so to speak. We have a COO, we have a director of administration, HR, tech. Those used to all be me. I mean, it wasn't that long ago I was crawling under tables, hooking up computers, and now we've got 3 people in our IT department. Right?
Wow.
So it's hard for me sometimes because I know we could do it much faster or easier, better, or whatever you want to say. But I have to really rely on the team that I have, which is fantastic. They're awesome. If I didn't have them, I would be going crazy. The same thing on the legal side. Yeah, at this point, I'm primarily overseeing work as opposed to doing the daily work. Although there are certainly things that I'm in the trenches doing because maybe it's really sophisticated or it needs my touch for some reason. Everybody knows the clients want to talk to the same lawyer, so sometimes it's a lot of communication, even though I might not be doing direct work on something. It's fun.
So in a firm your size, you have attorneys who ultimately work for the firm, represent the firm, have to carry the firm's banner. Yet at some level, I'm sure they want to create their own career, maybe book of business, maybe long-term, their plan is to leave. How do you handle attorneys building their business, creating loyalty to the firm, at the same time encouraging them to grow their business? How do you manage that? Is it individual, or do you have a company kind of culture on that?
Yeah, we're very culturally entrepreneurial, and I have pushed that from day one of my taking over. We want them to build their business here, right? I view what we have built in Lagerlof as a platform from which they can practice, right? They can take their shingle and they can go really anywhere, right? They could go to a different firm of our same size. They could go to a small firm. They could go out on their own. They could go to a big firm. And attorneys by and large practice where they feel like they are getting the support that they need, they have the resources that they need, and that they are in a tier of firm that their clients that they are working with will hire them. If you can satisfy and check all those boxes, you typically won't lose people. And we have done an amazing job of really being inventive and unique in the way that we try to comp attorneys to, not be driven by leaving to try to do something different. If somebody says, hey, I want nothing more than to have my own firm someday, that doesn't turn me off. What I look at is, okay, how can I take what you want, what you think practicing on your own is? What is it about that it's attracting? How can I show you what we have here that accommodates that? We have a director of marketing. You have somebody who will, do all of your videos and do all sorts of stuff. A lot of firms don't even have that. Even firms double our size don't have it in some instances. So, there is a way in which everybody can kind of practice from that perspective here, which is really unique. And it's one of the points of the firm that has allowed us to keep people and to grow people. And, we have a number of attorneys that are in their 40th and beyond year of practice. And this is the only firm they've ever worked at,
Wow.
which is unique.
Well, and I think those same principles apply in other businesses like real estate. It's the same thing. I have colleagues who want to start their own company, and I'm a broker. I've been independent. I work on a platform, kind of the way you describe it, that has everything I need for my business. I'm not going to leave because it's all there. If it wasn't, I'd have to leave. But I see people sometimes get the false idea. Well, if I own the whole thing myself, I have more. Well, maybe, but you're also going to have to recreate a lot. And that recreating will distract you from your job. So it seems to be attorneys are very similar business-wise to the real estate practice.
Yeah, it's not dissimilar to doctors either, right? They associate with the health system, right? And it's not because they couldn't open a doctor's office, down the street and do everything themselves. But the reality is, in order to compete and to do those things, right, there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. And we as a firm provide a ton of resources to allow somebody to practice effectively. And, you get to spread that out over a number of attorneys, as opposed to saying, all right, well, want to do that? You're going to have to pay $12,000 a year for that piece of software or whatever.
Right. One of the differences, I think, is that between your business and mine is everybody who goes into real estate assumes they're starting their business. I think attorneys and probably doctors, they're trained to be attorneys and or doctors. And I think somewhere they're not given often the preparation but you also have to build a career and or a business. And I see so many, I'm sure you see the same, they go out on their own and they forget they have to build a business. They just want to be attorneys. And it doesn't always work out that way. Like you have to do something to run a business to support you or affiliate with a firm that does that for you, right?
That's right. And we have attorneys of all kinds. We have attorneys that have been on their own and, come here. In fact, the call I had right before this was an interview for an attorney position. He's been on his own for 15 years and now wants to join a firm. And the reasons are kind of what I just alluded to. It's I need I need a bigger platform to attract the clients that I want. I don't have time to do all the management. I'm running them. I'm spending 50-60% of my time on management. I should be billing clients, so on and so forth. And then we have attorneys that really just want to, almost 9 to 5, right? They just want to, practice, go home, not think about the management, the employee issues, all of that. And then where we have those attorneys that are really entrepreneurial and they are the ones that tell me, I want to start my own firm. Those are usually become our practice leaders or our practice chairs, right? They are running departments within our firm. Maybe they are running a different office for us, which can be very analogous to your own shop, right? Even though it's operating under our firm standards and they report to me and all of that, they still have a lot of autonomy. So we try to meet them where they are from that perspective.
It's very similar to what we do in real estate. Really exciting. Well, again, and I think for those who are following this conversation, part of it is to give you an idea of the culture. When you talk to attorneys, there's a whole variety from the country bumpkin, single guy in an office. He's been at it for 40 years. He has the same business cards he got 40 years ago to work with a high-tech firm. And really, when you go into Joshua's firm, they could be any of those because they have a wide variety within his firm. Other firms, they're all kind of the same. And so you really want to understand there's a culture to attorneys. You want to build a relationship and try to meet them where they are as a relationship. This is meant to be participative. Love to have you guys ask questions, participate. I see coming out from Durham or Raleigh, North Carolina, Courtney Rollins. Courtney, what's up, man?
Hey, Bill. Hey, Josh. Well, thanks for sharing your time. Bill, I just wanted to just really quick give you a shout out and flowers because so much of the things that you've shared, I've tried to put into practice. Just started really drilling into probate in November, and you all see Bill is putting out so much awesome content. And as I'm learning probate space, what I learn, I'll put it into like a vlog form. And I'm saying all to say that I'm actually starting to get people are reaching out to me because they're seeing my YouTube, and then and so I had a lead reached out to me because she saw my YouTube work. I also, because of this community that you provided, was able to find a referral for an attorney so that I could connect her with that lead. And because of this community as well, you're like, hey, be a professional, make sure you give a warm handoff. So we set up a Zoom and I was able to sit with an attorney and watch the intake process. And I'm getting to the question, Josh, but during the process, the attorney said something I thought was really awesome, said that when you are giving your notice to creditors and the claims are coming in, make sure you negotiate every claim, because with her experience, many debt collectors will settle for pennies to the dollar, particularly if it's a decedent's account. So I was wondering if there's any tips or strategies that you can provide when it comes to speaking to debt and creditors about negotiating the debt down the estate.
Sure. And this is very state specific. What state are you in, Courtney?
North Carolina.
Got it. Okay. So every state is slightly different, right? California is unique in that there are a few rules that make it a little more challenging for creditors, actually, a little easier for us to negotiate things than there are in certain other states. For example, in California, there is a 1-year statute of limitations on the collection of debt from a decedent, regardless if an estate was opened or not. Very interesting, very weird sort of rule when you look at some of the others. Other groups. So you have to look at kind of what that is. But I agree with that attorney completely. You can negotiate those debts. You can look at them, and that really drives higher dollars in the door for the beneficiaries, right? I mean, and that's something, whether you get involved in that in the sale of real estate perspective, or however you're in that. Those types of little things are super important. And, just like in bankruptcy, a little bit of pushback from the estate can oftentimes result in them not even pursuing the claim at all. Because, depending on how much it is, it might not be worth it to them. If they're only owed $1,500, $2,000, they're probably not going to get a lawyer. They're not going to go in and file the claim. They're not going to do this. They're not going to do that. You do that 2 or 3 times, you've now netted the estate, $10,000, right? Or something like that. So it can be it can move the needle a lot. Great question.
So I'm glad to have Courtney on here. This is a national platform, and I advise real estate agents, if you want to learn about probate, go to the court, go to the courthouse, go to the filing room, see what's there. Every state's different, every county is different. So Courtney goes in Durham, right? Raleigh or Durham, goes in, makes friends with the clerk. He's taking selfies with her. She's giving him instructions. And I said to him, that's great, but that would never happen in Los Angeles. True or false, Joshua? That would never happen in LA. You would never get a selfie with a clerk and have her help.
No, you wouldn't. And, that kind of goes into the second point, I think, kind of go along with your question, Courtney, is, make friends with these people at the court. They are your best friend from the perspective of how you maximize things, because, because we have a smaller, there's 5 probate judges, for example, you kind of get to know a lot of them, and you can start to make some headway. But where I practiced originally, there was 1 probate judge. That's all that they did, and you got to know their clerk very, very well. And in many counties and places in the country, there's only 1 judge, period, and he or she hears everything from criminal cases to family law cases to probate cases. So really getting a sense there that the clerks will walk you through it. If they like you, they'll go the extra mile to help you. They'll call you, or they'll tell you, no, you got to check that box. Don't check this box, that kind of thing. Yeah. But
no, in LA, you're never going to get a selfie with.
You got to take advantage of these small town ways.
No, yeah. Exactly.
Well, good. Thanks, Courtney. Thanks for jumping in, man. Great. Okay. So again, and this is meant to be participants, so feel free, if you're on the YouTube, we got a big YouTube group today. Feel free to put questions there. I'm watching the chat box. You guys are talking to each other, which is fine, but you have a chance to talk to really one of the leading probate and estate planning experts in Los Angeles, if not the country, here. So feel free to jump in and ask questions. So let's talk a bit about, we talked about probate, we talked about estate planning. Let's talk about litigation a little bit.
Sure.
Seems to me that by the time they know it's litigation, right? They come to you and it's become litigation. It seems so hard to project an outcome that it must be almost impossible to project what the investment or cost is going to be in terms of legal fees. How do you advise? Yeah. I filed probate on my own. Everything was fine until my brother raised his hand. Now we're going at it. He hired an attorney. We're fighting each other. And you look at that, go, well, it's definitely a litigation situation. How do you assess what the costs are going to be and give them, set the expectations for the client?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, as soon as the litigation, hand is raised, kind of all bets are off on cost because you don't really know how the other side's going to react. One thing I can say is that almost all of these probate litigation fights, in which we're involved in many, are driven primarily by personal feelings. They're not driven by a decision on cost, right? Somebody peed in your Wheaties 30 years ago and you're still mad about it. And now you're going to be able to really exact your revenge now that mom or dad has died. And, out comes all the things, you let the air out of my bicycle when I was 9, all of that stuff. And that's really what drives a lot of that litigation. So depending on what your role is in a probate case, right, really trying to hone in on the value that you're bringing or the cost associated with either the litigation or what you're fighting about. I've had cases where the clients were fighting about who would be appointed the executor and the account, and that's a common fight. But the only asset of the estate was an account of $250,000. Now that just happened to be just over the limit, of assets that had to be probated. And I'm not handling that case personally, but it's still going on. And it's about 3 years into that fight, and there's still no one's appointed as the executor. And it's $250,000. I mean, they could have taken that, split it, invested it, and been way money ahead. But it's not about that. It's about who's winning, right? So if you can try to redirect and get people back to, what the focus is. Look, this is an estate. We're trying to split it up. Let's look at it from a cost-effective perspective. Great. But it's challenging for a lot of people to do that. It's very emotional. In many ways, it's very similar to if you're handling any kind of cases that are resulting from a divorce, right? Somebody's being forced to do something they don't want to do, and they're not going to do it willingly. So you have to really kind of stay the course, try to keep them aligned on that.
In the litigation, one of the places where I try to play a role is being able to work with both sides. The challenge is if one attorney introduces you, you looked at maybe as their side. On the flip side, if we're professionals, and hopefully those of us on the call are working on being better at this than the average realtor, then we have some skills on how to communicate better with both attorneys to get a better outcome for both sides at the end. What would you look for if somebody came to you and said, hey, I'm a real estate agent. Yes, it's true. I met, the other attorney and the other side, but this is an area that I'm experienced in. What are you looking for before you're going to say, okay, you could be a fair person and handle the deal for both of us? What as an attorney, what do you look for before you're going to agree to that third-party vendor?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking for someone that, regardless of the drama associated with the case, right, is going to be able to maximize the value of the sale, right? Because ultimately, that's what we need at the end of the day, right? We need the property to be sold and the proceeds to be split. And as long as there are more proceeds to split than there otherwise would be, right, that person's going to get a fair shake from my perspective. Very rarely would I push and say, no, we're not going to use that person, so long as there's evidence that they have done real estate sales before, because they are a little bit of a different animal, right? And that they have a platform, they're associated with a brokerage that's going to allow them to maximize the exposure and get the fair market value for the property. That's really the key, right? Because
Joshua, shut up.
What's that?
No, somebody else.
Oh, okay.
I muted themselves back to
the whole, you guys are all realtors, so that CMAs are great, broker price opinions are great, but the only way you're really going to know what the value of the property is to expose it to the open.
Right. And
once you've done that, then and you've done it in an effective way, then that's great.
By definition, if it's not on the open market, you're not going to get top dollar. There's just no way to do that. And I think as a broker, I also shop for my investor clients, and the one thing I look for is probate cases, limited authority, not on the MLS. Like I check every one of those because there's enough of them that end up being good value for investors. And there's a reason why you don't put it on the market is probably because you want to get it for a cheaper price. So
yeah, that's right.
Fantastic. Well, look, I really appreciate the time. I know you're busy, and I'm really fortunate to have you on here today. If somebody was interested in talking to you or your firm about estate planning or probate administration or related things, what's the best way to get in touch with you or your firm?
If you want to talk to me, email's great. Just like probably all of you, addicted to it, can't get away from it as hard as you try. So email's perfect. I can put it in the chat, or Bill, if you share it, however you want to do that.
Yeah.
Perfect. That looks like I was taken when I was in high school. We're going to go with that picture. But yeah, there's my contact information. That phone number goes to the firm, hotline, or the front desk, but the email goes directly to me. And happy to be a resource, whether it's in California or Ohio. Those are the two primary areas. Even though I've done work in other places, I know those two areas best. California is a beast. So if you have something that comes up, happy to be a resource for you.
Fantastic. Well, Josh, I really appreciate, having, met you recently on the real estate symposium, and really today giving us a deep dive on the business of law and probate and trust administration. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate everything you've done for us.
Absolutely. Happy to do it, and happy to help anybody that needs.
Thank you. Thanks. All the best. And for the rest of you, this is Probate Weekly. We do this every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern. We live stream it on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. It's recorded as well. If you put questions there, I'll check them up afterwards, and if appropriate, route to our guest, Joshua or whoever, or try to answer them myself. Also, a couple of free resources just to point out. If you want to sign up and come in on the live stream to participate, love to have you do that. That's at probateweekly.com. Sign up there, and there's a handsome guy that looks like my picture from high school. And then there's all the details. We also, if you want to see the past episodes, you go to episodes.probateweekly.com, and you can see already the next one's kind of teed up and ready to go. And then in Facebook, we have the group Probate Experts. We have about 2,200 members who get together, share leads, ask questions, report victories, ask for help. And our goal here is to create a national platform of real estate agents, investors, and professionals to service our customers better. So thank you, Ray, for being here today. I really appreciate it. Thanks again to Joshua, Courtney. Always great to see you, and we'll talk to you guys soon. All the best. Bye-bye.